Hey everybody in Lukman Nation, this is Jackie Lukman.
And I'm at the Shahid Lukman. Happy Memorial Day to those who have lost their lives in the service of this country. And we offer that because it's because of the sacrifices of those who gave the ultimate sacrifice that we are able to come live to you and express the thoughts that we have on our minds. So
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes, we do thank you, especially you, Pops. Thank you. So we're sitting here in our car as usual, and we're out and we were looking at some articles online this morning before we came out to do our errands, and we saw a bunch of articles on gentrification, and that's been a big thing in the news here in Washington D.C., but especially in places like Detroit, where the city of Detroit was almost a barren wasteland, almost, with so many people moving out of the city because of the lack of jobs, because of the poor infrastructure, because of the lack of support from city government and services and the cutbacks and all that kind of stuff. There was even a period of time when the former mayor, after Kirkpatrick, a part of his plan for attacking some of the blight in Detroit was to bulldoze entire blocks of abandoned buildings. That's how bad the depopulation of Detroit, of urban, predominantly black Detroit, was at one point. But now that's turning around, and what's happening is a lot of younger, predominantly white, and even some foreign investors, mainly specifically Chinese, are taking advantage of the very, very affordable, doggone near cheap real estate in Detroit, buying up houses and rehabilitating them, and benefiting from that period of blight. And while there are plenty of residents who have been long time residents of Detroit and have seen the city change, go through its boom and bust over and over again, there's this problem of gentrification, right? Where you have people who have lived in a city for a very long time, for generations, and the city goes through a downturn. People move out for one reason or another. There's all this abandoned property that the city needs to get rid of. They need to either get rid of it in terms of destroying it, like the former mayor of Detroit did, by bulldozing it so that it's not a tax burden, or they want people to come in and buy it, and they will sell these properties at ridiculously low rates. Now, as much as I understand that gentrification is uncomfortable for the people who live in the neighborhood and have lived in that neighborhood, especially when people come into the area who don't know the culture, don't know the people, don't care about the culture of the people, and they don't seem to have a lot of respect for the people who already live there. A part of this issue with gentrification is on us, black people, who live in these areas, because we complain so much about how people have so little respect for us when they move into our neighborhoods. They come in with their money and they buy up these properties, and they have very little either interaction with us, and if they do, then it's not pleasant. But then we have to be honest and ask ourselves, those of us who've been in this neighborhood, what have we done to stem the tide of gentrification? But even before that, what have we done to revitalize our own neighborhoods, right?
Well, yeah, and that was a good lead off that you did, Jackie, because I lived in a few urban centers and urban cities, and coming up in Camden, New Jersey. One of the things that I wanted to say is the fact that, let's look at it like this. Every time you hear a lot of us complain that, oh, well, when we lived in the neighborhood, nobody cared about investing money and resources in our neighborhoods, and when the cities were predominantly African American, no one cared. They just let the real estate just go down, and no one cared about investing. And one of the things that we never get honest about is why would another community want to invest why would another community invest resources and money for other people to enjoy? You know, self-preservation is the first law of nature. And so if other communities invest in a community, they're investing it for their own selfish interest, so that they can raise their families. And that's what gentrification is about. It's like terraforming, and those who are science fiction fans like I am, terraforming is when you go to another planet and make it like your home planet so you can live in. Gentrification is sort of like that. And so people come in to a neighborhood that's been allowed to go down, and so they look at it, they see the potential, they invest in it, and because they want to raise their families there, they want a community that they can relate to, and so they provide the resources and infrastructure so that it benefits them. Right. Now, while we whine and complain, and when I mean we, a lot of us African Americans who live in some of these cities and neighborhoods, while we whine and complain, what we never look at is the fact that before gentrification came in, there were already policies on the books that we could have took advantage of. A lot of the cities that I lived in, Newark, New Jersey, Camden, Philly, a lot of urban areas had on their books tax incentives, or what they call empowerment zones and business zones, that were implemented back in the 80s and 90s in order to have an economic stimulation of these areas. So it was giving incentives to business owners, like if you open up your business in this area, you would be able to take advantage of a lot of tax breaks and incentives, just because you were like a pioneer. You went in what was considered a bad neighborhood, and you brought some business opportunities or employment or whatever. On the labor market, there still is government policies that if you hired people from the neighborhood, the government would pay half their salary. If they came out of state prisons or whatever, you didn't even have to pay the whole salary. So a lot of these programs still exist. What happened was a lot of us didn't take advantage of it. Now we could say, well, we didn't know, or we didn't know they were available, but even that's not an excuse. It's like breaking the law and going in front of the judge and say, well, I didn't know that was against the law. Ignorance of the law is no excuse. Ignorance of these opportunities out here isn't an excuse. Somewhere along the line, we have to take the initiative to find out what's available. Now, a lot of times we want to blame this on culture, and a lot of folks want to blame this on culture. But let me tell you, in Newark, New Jersey, and in that surrounding area, the most successful business group, immigrants, are Haitians. And they're black people. They're African descended people. Down here in DC, you have the Ethiopian community. You have the African community. In the Western world, the most educated people in many of these countries are Africans themselves, even in this country. So it has nothing to do with being black, because even as African Americans, our ancestors have established towns and businesses, even in this country. And we got plenty of examples to cite that we've done that. The problem is that we don't practice group economics. That's it. And that's the problem. See, the problem is that we mirror so much of our habits after white people that we forgot how to really do for ourselves. And some folks say, well, integration hurt us. Well, it hurt us to a certain extent. What I mean by hurting us to a certain extent, we're an intelligent people. So we could have figured out that, even though we're allowed to, eat in this restaurant or go into this bathroom or maybe enter this school, we were intelligent enough to say maybe we should not give up our own, considering the history that we have in this country. They could take this back any day now, because it's civil rights. So they could take these civil rights back, and at least we have our own institutions and stuff that we can rely on. I'm sure that there were plenty of intelligent people who figured that one out. But we also have a cultural shift in our dynamics. America is a consumerist society. It's not just black people. We're consumers, but American society is consumerist.
Right.
But like I said, we model so much of our behavior after white people. But what we don't understand is that white people, they have advantages that a lot of us that we don't have.
Right.
That doesn't mean, for those of you who want to say, oh well, white people suffer too. Of course they suffer. But their landing is a lot softer than our landing when we go through the same struggle.
Right. Right.
So, and that's just a fact.
And that's on average, not incidental.
Yeah, I don't want to hear
individual.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to hear about Uncle Frank who lived in the cave, and and he was eating tree bark and everything, and he was my white uncle. He lived in the cave and he had to eat tree bark. So, no, we're not talking about incidences. What we're talking about is multiply Uncle Frank by times like 10,000.
Right.
Concentrated poverty, concentrated disadvantages. That's what we're talking about. And so it's not up to another community to come in and make things comfortable for us.
Right.
That's what we haven't gotten yet.
Right.
Is that we had these, and when foreigners come here, immigrants come here, and when they rightly say, well, why are you black people in America complaining because y'all could have done this? They're right. They're absolutely right.
Yeah. Because
a lot of these programs existed. But and I know that if we're going to get out of this descending slide that we're on, and just look at the National Urban League report and see that we have not gained any ground in 40 years. Yeah, a lot of y'all didn't want to read that, even though it was posted all the way around. Well, I'm here to remind us that we haven't gained ground in 40 years. That is nobody else's fault but ours, because we have failed not only to transmit the civil rights struggle to our children and give them the baton so they can keep pushing forward. Right. No, what happened is that we gained some trinkets and we felt like we overcame some of us. We were able to, gain some economic and political advantages, or gains, not advantages, but some gains. And then we felt like, hey, look, we bought into this. Right. Right. And then when they started to taking stuff back, now all of a sudden we got caught with our hands in the air. Right,
because we got fat, lazy, and complacent.
Right.
Thinking that, the little bit that they gave us, well, now we've arrived. Well, now, as you said, now they're taking this stuff back. And to a certain degree, yes, we need to hold politicians and our leaders, so-called leaders, and the system accountable for its role in it. But we cannot absolve ourselves for what we're not doing.
So I'll give you an example. Up in Camden, New Jersey, and just like down here in DC, there's an uptick in homicides and crime and stuff like that. So, it's the same response, we got to pray, shaking my head, oh my God, all this stuff. But see, what we don't really want to get honest about is that we don't have opportunities for a lot of our young people. Everybody's not going to go to college. Right. And we also know now everybody can't afford college. Right. And they keep changing the game on us. So we send our kids to a university to get a degree. They come out with the degree. Now they say, well, okay, you got a degree in that, but you didn't go to the right school. Right. Or we recognize this school as being superior to that school. So they're constantly playing the 3-card Molly with us, and we're still we're playing the game from people who want to keep things in their advantage for for them and their posterity. So instead of us saying that, look, we're not going to play the game, and those who advocate for wealth building, I agree that we need to build wealth. We need to become more entrepreneurial in our outlook and teach our children the same. But what we need to tell the second half of that. The second half is, what's the point of building wealth and businesses and having all of that if our thinking is still going to remain the same? Am I going to build wealth just to give it to other people? Right. Am I going to build wealth and not invest and not practice group economics? The susu, which is a practice of African people on group economics, is practiced successfully amongst black immigrant groups. But when African Americans try to do it, when we try to do it, it's we don't trust each other. You know, so now, you know, we bought into this individualistic mentality, and we the least ones in this country who can afford to have it.
Right.
So, you know, so the thing of it is that if we are going to get out of this malaise that we're in, we're going to have to change our mindset. We're going to have to, and I'm not saying trust everybody, and everybody you can't save. But what I am saying is the fact that if we are going to change the direction from always failing to gaining ground, we got to start doing some things different.
Yeah.
You know, we really do have to start doing something different. I don't like seeing us not making gains in 40 years. I don't know how you feel about it. I don't like that, because that is a blaring sign that something is definitely wrong with the way we're doing things.
Yeah. And you know, in closing, you know that we here in Coffee, Current Events, and Politics in Lukman Nation, we always hold the system accountable for what the system does to oppress us and continues to do to oppress us and advance injustice and maintain it. And in this system of white supremacy, and how it even uses white people to do that and abuses them too. That's true. That has always been true. And there are going to be some vestiges of that around for some time to come. That's not something that we're going to address overnight. But just because that is true, it does not mean that we do not hold some responsibility for some of this problem. Anytime we are now in a situation where we are giving $420 million to various black church institutions, and we have $1.2 or $3 trillion in spending power, but the neighborhoods we live in are not owned and controlled by us, we can only blame the system for that so much. So, thanks for tuning in.
And join us and follow us on social media. Yes. Twitter, Facebook, all of those other things. And follow us on Saturday at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 3:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for Coffee, Current Event, and Politics. We got a dynamite show coming up this weekend. We're going to be talking about many of these things. We're going to discuss the report that the National Urban League has done. And we're going to discuss, we're going to have on our show Michelle X. Darlene, Ashley Jones of Black Women Against Feminism, and of course Apostle Ray Wilkerson from Ray's Corner. So, you know, come and join us. This is for serious people who want to have a serious discussion and come up with solutions, because we got to reverse this trend. We can't remain to keep our heads in the ground about this. We can't give up hope, because if we give up hope today, then there's no hope for our children, our grandchildren in the future. So we have to do more than pray. We have to start doing some things and thinking differently. So this is we're going to keep coming with this, because these are important topics that we feel need to be addressed.
Thanks for joining us.